Well,
Hello.
Oops. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Hi, Catherine. Just admitting Vikram as well. All right. So just very quickly, since you're moderating, Catherine, will you just take it from the top and just welcome everyone and
Yep.
start that? Is that okay? All
Yes.
good?
Yep, I can do that. Will you be letting people in as they
Yes,
trickle in?
yes.
Perfect, perfect.
We'll
And
manage the logistics.
thank you. And then if people are putting questions in the chat, will either you or I be able to see those?
You will, you will.
Okay.
Are you the co-host? Sagar, are you there? I'm just trying to make sure that you are the co-host.
Yeah. And I think Vikram will also need to share his screen. So we either enable screen sharing or else make him co-host as well.
Yeah. 1 second. I'm just trying to see who has started the meeting.
hi Bhakti, I started. I'm making everyone co-host.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a ton. Yeah, so you can make all the panelists co-hosts just in case. So we're not. Hi, Jonathan. Good to see you. I think it's the first time. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Excited about this one.
Yeah, it is definitely an interesting topic, very close to my heart.
I can see Keisha is here. Can I let her in?
Yeah, for
please.
sure.
Hi, Keisha.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good, good. How are you?
Good.
Okay, great. So I think, Vikram, if you just want to check that you're able to share your screen and that's all good. Who else? Jonathan, we know that your mic is working. Pavel, you can hear and see us?
Just one moment.
All right. I'm going to take a quick FOMO screenshot and post it on the group. So people, I mean, we already have folks in the waiting room, but big smile, people. Oh, don't share your screen, Vikram. Don't share your screen.
Yeah, stop it. I was
It's
just,
fine.
I was just testing
Testing
it.
it. All
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. All good. Okay, big smile once again. All right, we're letting people in now, and here we go. Okay. Okay. All right, over to you, Catherine.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being prompt and on time. We always appreciate that. We are going to wait maximum 2 more minutes for a few more people to trickle in, and then we will go ahead and get started.
I can't imagine anybody doing anything better than this on a Friday night.
On a rainy Friday night, especially.
Where is it raining, Catherine? Where are you?
Delhi,
Cold,
all
Delhi.
day since last night. It's just been a steady rain. I mean, it's lovely if you don't if you don't have anywhere to go and anywhere to be, but we've had steady rain all day.
Well, I live in probably one of the best cities in the country, Hyderabad. And so we don't have those issues of too much rain, too much heat. You know, it's a lot like Atlanta in the US, I'd say. You don't have the tornadoes of Florida, and you don't have the cold of like Boston, and you don't have the fires of California. So we're pretty good that way.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. I think we're good to go.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started to honor the time of everyone who is here. Thank you again for joining us. I'm really excited for this evening's panel discussion. We're going to be talking about navigating college sports admissions and careers in sports. As a quick introduction, I'm Catherine Mehta. I'm the founder of Advanta Consulting. I'm going to be your moderator for this evening's panel. And part of the Outreach Collective's mission is to foster professional learning and development in a wide array of areas, diverse, including sports. And now is a really exciting time to be talking about the sports industry because it's booming. So I pulled out some stats before as I was doing research for this. So there are projections that the sports industry is estimated to reach over $600 billion by 2025. And this growth isn't just limited to traditional fields like professional athletes or coaching. We're seeing a lot of emerging careers as well, which we're going to talk a little bit about this evening. In sports analytics, sports management, marketing, even esports are all emerging at an incredible pace. In India, the sports industry is also seeing tremendous expansion. So it's growing at a rate of 16% annually. This has been fueled by the rise of leagues like Indian Premier League, Pro Kabaddi, and then the growth of grassroots sports movements. For student athletes and sports enthusiasts, this means that the playing field is bigger than ever. So whether that means leveraging sports scholarships for college admissions or exploring the wide range of careers in the expanding industry. Today, we're going to discuss how to navigate these opportunities and challenges and help students navigate them as well. And we're going to tap into the expertise of our panelists who bring their wealth of knowledge in college admissions, career counseling, and the business of sports. So with that, I'm going to give you guys a quick introduction to the panelists who are joining us this evening, starting with Vikram Anand, who is a graduate electrical engineer from the University of Idaho. He's an avid tennis player, passionate sports person, fitness enthusiast, and experienced professional and thought leader in sports development and career counseling. Vikram draws energy by providing guidance and counseling for college sports admission and career development. Driven by this passion for sports, he's created the concept of CASE, aimed at helping young people achieve their true intellectual and athletic potential. We're also really excited to have one of these young people, Kesha Modi, joining us. She's a current student athlete at Lehigh University, and she's pursuing a double major in finance and business analytics. She's an NCAA D1 track and field athlete specializing in long jump. She's won over 100 medals, including 12 from the Indian Junior National Level Championships. She's earned the ranking of 4th in Lehigh's history for indoor long jump and 8th for outdoor long jump. And she really is that epitome of classic, sport and academic balance. As we look then towards what comes next after college, we have Jonathan Rigo, who's joining us this evening. He's a sports industry professional with over 16 years of experience in the field. He's worked with brands such as the NBA, Adidas, PSA, and currently heads corporate services at Mumbai City FC. He also started and eventually exited Nation of Sport, a sports journalism venture. And today he's going to give a perspective on how young people can turn their passion for sport into a profession. Finally, we're joined by Mr. Dhaval Mehta, who is a graduate of University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and brings work experience in investment banking, consulting, and venture capital prior to his foray into education in 2014. He has certificates in college counseling from Columbia University and UCLA Extension, and completed his executive program in management from Cornell University's Johnson School of Business. Through Globestar EduTech's unit, TNI, Career Counseling, he supports students as an independent counselor. He was also responsible for setting up a counseling cell at BVRTSE School in Pune, and he's currently the president of the University of Michigan India Alumni Association with over 3,800 alumni across all of India. I'm really excited to have these guys here to be able to talk to us about the different areas, emerging areas in sports recruitment, sports admission, as well as the different careers. Just briefly for how the session will flow. So I'm going to moderate a discussion. I ask that you everyone in the audience, please stay on mute. But if you have questions, please do put them in the chat because we're going to open it up to questions in the last 10 to 15 minutes. So I'll pull in any that have come in from the chat in the meantime, and then we can all have a discussion. So with that, I am going to start with Vikram, please. Vikram, given your experience working with students across college and recruitment and sports admission, can you tell us a little bit about how the sports recruitment process works across different countries and how this differs from the general academic admissions route?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind, I'm gonna share my screen. I have some slides to share, which will make it a little more, a pictorial presentation, and it'll be easy for everybody to understand. This is a very deep, vast topic. So, and with paucity of time, I just want to make sure that I speak as clearly and fluently as I can. Uh, Most of all, thank you, TOC, for having this session. It's very exciting, and I'm very excited to be sharing this panel with Jonathan, Keisha, and Dhawal. Keisha is a star. I know her very well, and obviously she's highly accomplished, a great student. So I'm gonna just share my screen. Give me one moment, please. There we go. So before I dive into your question, I just want to share a very brief background because we're talking about college sports. So I just want to clarify to everybody what college sports is all about, and then I'll talk about how is it different in every country, and then on to your next question. Uh, uh, if we look at college sports, broadly speaking, there are three types of sports that are played in colleges, and this holds true for pretty much everywhere in the world. Uh, the most amateur student population sport is basically intramural sport, something like what we call inter-house in India, inter-house matches. In schools in India, you have houses. So similarly, in colleges in America, most of you would have seen residence halls. So residence halls competing against each other, that's intramural. Students don't receive any class credit for it, and you just need a limited amount of skill for it. There are many different types of leagues that are played in intramural. Some of the Greek division and off-campus division, those are all intramural sports. So basically, the intra-college sports are your intramural sports, and that's the first level of sports that's played in colleges. Um, the next level is club sports. Now, club can be very different in Europe versus USA. Uh, Colleges have clubs within them, which is basically a student community or a student population coming together and forming a club, which is usually recognized by the university's athletics department. And the skill level is, of course, higher than intramural. Uh, there are many cricket clubs in US colleges. There are chess clubs in US colleges. Uh, there's a very popular upcoming sport known as pickleball, which has now club sport, which is also
And I
a
know
club.
you have strong feelings about pickleball.
I have very strong feelings about it, as you know. So there's usually a membership for club sports, and club is very different, has a very different connotation in Europe, right? What we're talking about today, of course, is varsity, as it's known in the US, or intercollegiate or inter-university sports. Now, these are the sports that are officially recognized by universities, and they're funded by the university's athletic department, or they're funded by the university itself. And pretty much all over the world, they are governed by regulatory authorities. So I'll throw off some names over here, and I don't want to confuse people with acronyms. There's an organization called the NCAA, National Collegiate Athletics Association in the USA, which governs and regulates college sports. Similarly, there's CCAA in Canada, there's British University College Sports in UK, there's Unisports in Australia, and in India, there's Association of Indian Universities, which supports, promotes, and regulates college sports. So this is just a background about what we're talking about. So today we're going to focus on varsity sports, intercollegiate sports. Now, to specifically answer your question, and this is where it gets a little deep, and please feel free to interrupt me if there's any question. I hope my screen is very clear.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, are you able to make it a little bigger to see the table?
I've
Is that
been
possible?
trying to press present over here, and yeah, there we go. Is that better?
It seems, yes, that is now. Thank you.
Yeah. So college sports is the process for college for getting sports admission is different in different parts of the world. And we start off in India. Sports admissions is basically known as sports quota. We love the word quota in India. But what is quota? It's nothing but assisted admission, right? Uh, there are a limited number of seats in every central university, not private university. And you need your state or national participation certificates, which are mandatory. If you produce your certificates, you're eligible for a trial, but there are limited choices between colleges and sports. In UK and Europe, a sports trial happens after admission. And especially in UK, there's a highly competitive inter-university league, which is governed by the BUCS. Except for the UK, rest of Europe has very limited options of inter-university sports. There is no assisted admission, but you can reach out to a college coach to see whether you fit into the team and then make sure you apply to that college in Europe. There are limited scholarships. It could be from 25% all the way till 100%, but the number of scholarships that are issued are limited, especially in UK and as per BUCS. Australia, of course, has a very, very elaborate elite athlete university network, and they play in the Uni Sports Nationals in Division 1 and 2. Again, over here, certificates are mandatory for authenticity, and there are several sports options and there are several scholarships. US is very similar to India in terms of an assisted admission, but there's no quota, and there is no trial per se. It's about a coach finding you suitable for his or her team, and so coach contact is the key. And this is the only country where sports admission is given purely on sports merit. And the entire process again is holistic and not purely empirical, as Keisha will tell you, because they look for good students, good players, and of course you have to match the academic standard of the institution that you're going to. So academics is also important. There are several sports options and there are several different types of scholarships that are available. I'm going to quickly dive into each country very briefly because I know we have a shortage of time. Should I move on, Catherine?
Yes, please do. And thank you. This is really helpful to see the table.
Yeah. So if you look at India, and I wanted to specifically talk about India because, you know, sports admissions is a very, you know, it's people are sort of not informed enough because the information is not shared very easily. But Association of Indian Universities promotes and regulates college sports in India. It's partially funded by Ministry of Youth and Sports Affairs, and a lot of tournaments are organized by AIU in collaboration with BCCI. The Visi Trophy is organized, which is an inter-university tournament for cricket. Then the Nehru Cup is also done by AIU, and AIU is a member of the International University Sports Federation. Specifically speaking, and this will be of a lot of interest to people on this webinar, I wanted to talk about sports quota in central universities, which is basically where, you know, there's a lack of information. These dates that you're looking at is for this year. So your certificates that you produce to the college for gaining sports quota admission have to be basically from 2021 to 2025 now for next year. And for this year, they would have been from 2022 to 2024. So nothing below 4 years.
Got it.
From class 12, right? So class 9th onwards, just like the US. You cannot apply for more than 3 sports and 3 events. So 1 event per sport. You can do maximal of 3 trials. So you take your certificates, you go to the registrar, you show them the registrar, and then they award you points based on the certificates. If you have international participation, and international participation is something like Asian Games, Commonwealth Games, Olympics, then there is no trial. And that's the super category, and you get the maximum points for category A. And then category B, C, and D is based on what level you've played. So it could be zonal, district, state, nationals. You get awarded points based on that. And your common sports merit points is a total of the points that you earn in trials, plus the points that you earn from certificates and the CUET marks. Based on the marks that you get, so the weightage of CUET is 25%, and CUET is mandatory for central universities, 25% for certificates, and 50% for trials. And then the seats are allocated in a college based on the marks that you get, and the sport that you want to play has a limited number of seats. That's where the quota comes in. Although the assisted admission is there, but the quota is the limited number of seats. Right? So I hope that's clear to everybody, and I just was very keen on talking about this because this is where you'll barely find this information on the university AIU website.
Fantastic. Do you think you can cover the rest of them in 1 minute?
Oh God. Okay, let's move on to your next question if you like, because I have everything for every country.
Yes, please. Yeah. And I think if people have specific questions about different country processes, maybe we can go
I
into
think
that
we'll
in the
do that.
Q&A.
I'll do that.
Yeah,
I'll just talk about the how you go about it.
please.
To start with class 9th, I made a step, your question was how does a student prepare step by step? So here's a step-by-step preparation. If you want to play college sports, just draw a parallel with academic admission. With an academic admission, you'll do profile building. Sports works the same way. You should start early. You should work on your skill, enroll a personal coach or a trainer, work on your fitness, get a personal coach, think about what you want to study, make lists, make a tournament schedule for the year. In class 10th, focus on training, but this is a crucial year in India. So be selective of the tournaments that you play. And this is when you're growing up to be a mercurial teenager who's playing high performance sports. So your attitude really matters towards your teachers, parents, peers, and your teammates. If you're going to go to the US, the NCAA registration should be done in this year. The SAT ACT preparation after the class 10th boards is a good idea. Class 11th gives you a little bit of a breather. So play lots of matches. This is where your ranking will matter. Make videos, tons and tons of videos and all types of videos. And we can get into what sort of videos and how to make those videos and what do coaches look for in videos, because it's not possible for an international student to go and play in front of a coach, right? So video is the best way to go about it. Start contacting college coaches, take the ACT or the SAT if you're going to the US. A lot of colleges have showcase tournaments, showcase events. Even UK, you can go and play in front of coaches, just as in the US. Stick to the training and no pain, no gain. Typically, with the students that I work with, they're done by December. Mostly, they're already recruited. They've already been confirmed with the coach, and the application process and all that is done, because you're not going to apply to 20, 30 colleges. You're going to only typically apply to the college where you've been recruited, right? So this is a very different process as compared to an academic admission. So narrow down your list at the beginning of class 12, start talking to college coaches over the summer. And the moment you identify the right fit in terms of you being able to play on the team and the scholarship meeting your budgetary requirement, and the team structure matches you and the location matches your wishes, you're done. You have to complete the NCAA process in terms of amateurism and the eligibility center requirements, and that's it. So I've crunched in a lot of
Yes, you have no,
information.
thank you. This was packed full of information. Thank you. This was really helpful. Keisha, did this remind you of your high school experience looking at this table and these steps?
Oh, yeah, it sure did. I'm
So
going down the memory lane.
yeah,
Sorry.
my next question is for you now. So as a student athlete, what does a day look like for you when you're in season?
Thank you for that question. I think I should have like a disclaimer before I talk about my day. It looks really different than my freshman year. I was like such a frantic person, but 3 years of being a student athlete like really teaches you how to manage time and be your best self. Okay, so I don't know about the other countries, but in most universities in America, you have the freedom to choose what classes you want at what times you want. So I tend to take most of my classes between 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, since I want to get the academic load of the day away with in the earlier half of the day. And I tend to get up super early because that's the best time you can, get done with all your homework and prepare for the day, because once the day starts, it gets super busy. And as a student athlete, you hardly have any time to, pause and work on the other academic stuff. And it also helps to compartmentalize the days. I usually tend to have like 1 hour between some of the classes. So meal preps are really important in that time. You have to be really speedy with it. Most universities have like dining halls, so you can always go there, do that. But nutrition, as a student athlete, obviously nutrition is something that you have to really take care of. So I tend to prepare my own meals. Some people also, meal prep for the entire week, but I feel like as an Indian, that's like really tough for me to have the same thing every day. So I try to cook my own meals. We usually have practice from 4:45, and from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I really want to shift gears and, prepare from like switching it from academic to athletic. And there are multiple ways you can do that. You can either just, meditate for a while, or think about what you're going to do at practice the day. And sometimes the coaches also like kind of help you with that and be like, oh, just walk a lap with your teammates and talk about how your day was today and things like that. I get back and I thank myself for cooking the meal the afternoon, have that, and yeah, again, prepare for the next day. And in season, it can get a little more difficult, although some items look exactly the same, but in season, it's like the difference between like Indian and American sports in that aspect is that you compete every weekend here, and once the season starts, you have to like get going. You usually do not have weekends for doing a lot of your academic load. Even though you have exams, you have to like get done with it mostly during the week. And yeah, the fatigue aspect of it is a little more. So I also try to put the recovery part earlier in the morning, like stretch a little bit or do some yoga so that you're recovering well. Yeah, that's about how my day looks like.
Oh, thank you. I think that's really, really helpful, especially for those of us who are not student athletes who have never lived that experience. So as a double major in finance and business analytics, that must also keep you really busy. So do you find, is the university more accommodating for student athletes when it comes to the academic load, and how do you balance all of that?
Oh, the university is definitely very helpful when it comes to like academics. They really value you as a student athlete, and they make sure you have the support you need. Obviously, it's extremely challenging and it's not easy, but it's very doable if you take the right steps, like communicate with the coaches, communicate with your professors, and just leave a small note. Hey, I'm a student athlete, and these are usually my training times, and so they can be accommodating according to your needs. Sometimes if you're going to have to go to a competition and have to miss a class or something, so they'll make sure that you are still able to cover up the stuff that you've missed. And definitely there's a lot of support that comes from the coaches. And also the coaches here are extremely, they stress on being a student first as well. And academics is a major part of you being a student athlete. So they also have certain, like, you have to maintain a certain GPA to also be on the team.
Yeah. And we were having this discussion prior. So do you see yourself continuing with a career related to sports as well after you graduate?
I definitely do. I still have to navigate how that's going to look like though, but I definitely want to pursue it. And I often like kind of go back to India and perform in competitions also. So I'm able to, at least be on the list for in future if there are like any international competitions or nationals or anything. So I really want to do that, but yes, I'm still navigating how that's gonna look like.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for joining us, and we really value having your perspective here. To talk a little bit more about navigating those different careers in sports. Now, Jonathan, I want to turn the questions to you. So, given your vast industry across the sports, or your vast experience across the sports industry, can you tell us a little bit about some of the more popular careers these days in the sports industry, and also some of the lesser known or emerging ones?
Sure. At the start of this, first, thanks for the question, Catherine. Thank you so much to TOC for conducting this. Congratulations to Keisha on their mission. And people like I wish I had a gentleman like Vikram around when I was 16 and playing basketball, and should have probably made it. But to answer your question, and actually it's a perfect segue to what Keisha was mentioning. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Is it Keisha? Okay, excellent. The fact is that in India, particularly, especially when in the past couple of months that I've actually started to talk to counselors, the perception is that sport or working in sport is either a professional sports person or a coach, or maybe something to do with physiotherapy or being a sports doctor. That's unfortunately the general perception of what careers in sports look like, right? But the truth of the matter is, just like any other industry, sports is an industry. And there are companies in this industry, they have profit and loss statements, they have income, they have revenue, they have HR, they have IT, they have sales, they have marketing, so on and so forth. So to get to your question, what are some of the more popular careers these days? So there are two aspects to it. So in India, the more popular careers are primarily around events, because the Indian sports industry is effectively not more than 2 decades old. Although sports has been played in India for a very long time, in sport as an industry only evolved with the emergence of the Indian Premier League in 2008. That's when the concept of managing sports teams, sports athletes, sports events as companies evolved with the Indian Premier League. So events is still a huge part of what works with India and young boys and girls who want to join the sports industry in India. Another interesting and emerging aspect is the academies. So a lot of academies, and what's happening is because of the interest in sports and because of the importance laid on physical fitness and understanding the value, just non-physical values that sport can bring, right? Whether it's teamwork, whether it's discipline, whether it is understanding each other. A lot of parents want to actually have their kids train at academies. So the academy business has picked up a big way in India, and that has become a career choice for a lot of people. Then there's the obvious tech aspect, because not only because India is known as a tech hub in general for the globe, but also because a growing sports industry like India will need all the technological help that it can get in order to grow really quickly. So there is always investment from a tech standpoint of view. What kind of software can we create? What kind of hardware can we create to help proliferate or grow the industry much faster? So tech roles, whether it is software or hardware, are very, very common in India. Internationally, I'd also continue to go there talk about how technology is still big internationally. But what's particular, because the Western sports industries are largely more evolved, there's a lot of focus on data. And I mean, I don't want to use the word AI and machine learning because I feel like it's a buzzword that's being used a lot. So I'll just stick with data. Just the idea of collecting all that data and being able to decipher that data and allow organizations to make better decisions. And it's not necessarily stuff that only, let's say, when you say data, a lot of people have one particular vision of data, whether it is, and it usually has to do with what their perception of the sports industry is. But I can tell you that data is used to make better decisions on which player to bring. Data is used to make decisions on how many seats need to be in a stand. Data is used to make decisions on where a particular concession stand goes in the stadium so that it can generate the most revenue. So data is required at every part, and there is a lot of data being collected. They just need people or minds to be able to break down this data in order for organizations to make better decisions. So data and tech is a very, very big part internationally. And the last thing that I would say for internationally, just in terms of emerging, is fan engagement opportunities. As I'm sure all of us are aware here, we face these challenges in different ways. The attention spans are coming down significantly, which means it's getting harder and harder to engage fans. And as such, the younger generation, that's probably, I would say, the generation between 13 and 18, is not as hooked on to sports as some of the older generation was, right? You need to actually grab their attention. So organizations are actually investing in either technological or content roles that will allow them to capture the imagination of this young crowd in order to bring them back to sport.
Fantastic. So these last two that you mentioned, you said they're a little more international, but are we starting to see more of that database decision making as well as fan engagement emerging in the Indian sports industries?
So not so much within the IPL, 100%, because the IPL is the only league in India currently that has such a huge fan base that it requires the data to kind of break down that fan base. The Indian Super League is coming up there. And the smaller leagues, whether it is kabaddi, whether it is volleyball, whether it is ultimate table tennis, whether it is even Khelo India for that matter, right? All of these are slowly coming up, but they are more focused on bringing the fans in right now instead of engaging them. So there are two aspects to that, right? One is to bring the fan in, And then the other second aspect is to engage them. Most leagues in the West have the fan already hooked. They just need to keep them engaged. So there's slightly different problems. With the IPL though in India, yes, keeping them engaged is a big challenge, is something that organizations are actually working towards fixing.
Got it. Thank you. That's really interesting, those insights. Does one have to have been an athlete in order to pursue these different career paths?
I'm smiling because you can look at me. Because you can see my top half, you know that doesn't figure out, I'm not an athlete by any means. In fact, the funny part is I come from a family of 5, my mother, my father, my 2 brothers, and the athletic genes completely missed me. My mother was an athlete, my father was an athlete, my brothers were both in university level athletes. The best I did was play on like interclass college basketball team. So no, you don't have to be an athlete at all. However, there is a certain, in the West, because it's evolved, the pay scales are much better for sure. But in India, because the industry is evolving, in general, comparatively, working the sports industry pay scales are comparatively lower. So you almost have to have a passion for sport. And the idea is passion for sport often tends to be a given in athletes, but there are non-athletes such as myself who are just as passionate and can succeed in the sports industry if they have the right guidance.
Fantastic. Got it. So what advice do you have for those of us who are working with young people, whether they're athletes or just very interested in the sports field, for how they can start to navigate and understand these different career paths?
So the one myth that I want to bust is the concept of sports management. Sports management is as meaningless a term as, let's say, car management or refrigerator management. It's a silly term. It's actually a meaningless term. The idea is that you have to look at the sports industry as just like any other industry. Like I mentioned earlier, it has a profit and loss account, it has income, it has expenses, it has revenue, it has marketing, it has HR, it has sponsorships. The only difference between, let's say, a company, let's say an IPL team, and let's say Mahindra Vehicles, is that the IPL team is in the business of cricket and Mahindra Vehicles is in the business of selling cars. So you have to look at it from a business standpoint of view. And there are essentially 3 aspects to any business. One is you bring in the money, so which is you do sales or sponsorships. 2, you help the brand grow, so which is largely marketing. And the third is any what I would call support activities, right? So HR, IT, administration, finance, legal, that kind of stuff. So where I actually help or I talk to young people is what you have to do is you have to identify either a skill set that you already naturally have or a subject that you naturally feel like you want to learn more about. Right? You like nobody's your mom and dad are not telling you, oh, you should read this book or you should read this blog or you should watch this video. You're naturally doing that because you love it. That was, for example, NBA basketball for me, right? And the stats and the stuff that was for me personally. Nobody asked me to follow that stuff. I would do that, and I can blurt out stats from the 1998 season for you right now because I was passionate about it. So you either find a skill set that you naturally have or something or a subject that you naturally feel you can learn more about, and cross that with something, with an opportunity that exists in the sports industry. So if you're somebody who loves to work with people, there are opportunities for athlete managers in the sports industry. If you're somebody who likes to work with, who's a creative person, there are opportunities for marketing in the sports industry. So you find your natural skill set or the subject that you like, and you cross-reference it with an opportunity that works in the sports industry or exists in the sports industry. And you do a course that helps you specialize in that skill set. So I would much rather, let's say, for example, I'm hiring for a media role. I would much rather hire somebody who has a master's in media and communication than somebody who has a master's in sports management, because there is a very specific demand on the kind of job that I'm looking for. Similarly, if I'm hiring for somebody in the finance team, I'm not going to hire somebody who has a master's in sports management would be great, but I'm actually looking for somebody who's actually good at finance. So it's very important to balance out between being passionate and doing a generic sports degree versus finding something very specific that you are good at or you would like to get good at and seeing how that opportunity lies in the sports industry. That's the only advice I'd give.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I like that a lot. It's like finding your ikigai within sports industry and what to do. Great. Thank you so much for that. So kind of carrying this conversation forward, Dhaval, my next question is for you. How can non-specialist counselors support and guide students and families through the athletic recruitment process?
Hi, thanks to TOC and the speakers before me, and thanks, Catherine. You made it engaging right from the get-go, and thanks, Vikram. I think you laid a great foundation. Jonathan, a lot of what you said, I hope that resonated with Keisha, because I think she's also doing a finance and a degree where a lot of what you're actually saying to an extent when you're choosing careers is important. So a lot of learning there. So this is exactly what, just answering your question, Catherine, I would say is that for those who are, counselors who are not sort of essentially specialists or, non-specialists in this area, a great thing would be to just, do more basic information gathering, understand the process, familiarize yourself with basics of athletic recruitment, including key timelines, eligibility requirements, just common procedures for different levels of competition. Just what sort of, I would say Vikram started with by talking about different countries, what to look for, and, probably then share resources with the students. That could be contact information for athletic associations, recruiting services, help with identifying potential schools, understanding recruiting rules, that could sort of vary depending on recruiting organizations. That could be the NCAA, and then supporting in the application and documentation process. Sort of, I would say, assisting with or offering guidance on how to highlight their athletic achievements. I think one of those things also could be the video that has to be made, to sort of highlight your skill. So organizing the documentation is fairly necessary. Also transcripts, test scores, letter of recommendations, sort of promoting that personal branding, for the student, that is highlighting their achievements, their statistics, their skills, as I was mentioning, the recruiting video. That could be something which I would probably want Keisha to talk a little bit about, if she can, of how she made that and how she connected with the coaches. That would be also sort of helpful to highlight. But I think a lot of this would sort of be fairly important as a counselor, also providing emotional, motivational support, encouragement, managing expectations. Sort of working with the student to set realistic goals, manage expectations. I would say also, facilitating communication in preparing for interviews with coaches, recruiters. So that could be some of those things that could be done. Encouraging any networking, opportunities, and then connecting with specialists. So I think, if you're attending this is a great start for you to kind of understand also what you could provide. And, providing a balance of academics and athletics, providing academic support, that could be great. Understanding the eligibility, what are sort of the requirements, even for athletic scholarships and recruitment. And then just staying, informed and up to date, joining professional networks, learning from peers. I think this is some of the greatest. I would think this is this is probably a great start, to provide that support.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think that's a really comprehensive overview of the kind of support. Do you have any other tips or best practices that you would suggest from cases that you've dealt with before?
So I'd say that also a lot with athletes, and something that Keisha mentioned also was sort of just addressing the mental health and well-being is sort of important. Knowing what they're going through, also if they're they get affected by getting hurt, making up for classes, talking to their coordinators, being able to support them through that process is super important. And also, exploring the career options. You should sort of have an environment where they can come and discuss with you, and try to help them and sort of support them through that. Because it doesn't mean just because you're an athlete that you want to study kinesiology, or you want to, just study exercise science, or so it's just, kind of working with them to understand a lot of what Jonathan said. It's sort of important to know that what are the options that you actually have, even if you are considering sports, or going into it. It's like a business. So, so it's kind of important to do that. Supporting during injuries, encouraging a balanced life, building sort of strong relationships to establish trust. So, kind of also regular check-ins, having more meetings to discuss academic support, personal well-being, involve parents, so that, that support's sort of more steady. And then, ethical considerations like maintaining confidentiality, ethical standards, also cultural sensitivity and inclusivity, some of the things that I would say.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that's great. It's sort of a holistic approach to counseling and working with student athletes. Taking the next step from one of the questions that you had raised, Keisha, can you tell us a little bit more about what your video was like? Also, one question that has come in from the audience is just more about your recruitment process and what that experience was like for you.
Sure. Let me start with like the video part of it. So I'm a long jumper, and they also need to know, the coaches all look for how you're able to bound on different surfaces, and basically specific athletic abilities that are just beyond the number on paper. And I think that's even more important when it comes to sports like football or soccer, because the only way to evaluate a performance of a person is through knowing their athletic abilities. Like in athletics, we have specific markers like I can jump a 5.8 meters, but the coaches really value how you can do that. And I remember Vikram sir specifically told me to make these specific videos of these drills and all. And at that point, I was just like, I don't know how it's going to be perceived by the coaches, and what they're going to say, but they were really impressed by the fact that I could bound on cement, let's say, because that's not what most people do here. But my coaches in India would often have me do that. And so yeah, that was really helpful, and they were really impressed by that one skill, and they mentioned it like quite a few times. So I do think that was one of the reasons they also recruited me. And more about my recruitment process, I think communication with the coaches, I think, is most important to be able to learn what their coaching environment is like, what the cultural environment is like, how inclusive they are, how diverse they are. Really helps with either choosing where you want to go and just evaluating if you'd fit in that kind of culture.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
I just want to come in. There's one thing that she forgot, and this is specifically for track, which everybody should know. In India, if you participate in the Athletics Federation or India Athletics Federation meets, you're not allowed to compete in more than 2 events. Whereas in the US, you can compete in unlimited events. And our good friend Keisha here had a fabulous record in triple jump, which she never shared. And then when I shared the triple jump record with the coach, he was blown away. He was like, "What? She's a long jumper or a triple jump?" I said, "Well, she doesn't compete with triple jump. Her record of triple jump is what got her in, although she's a national level long jumper."
That's fantastic. It's so impressive, Keisha. Every single time I learn more about you, I'm more and more impressed.
Yeah.
Really phenomenal. Vikram, while I have you, I want to ask you a question that's come in about the difference between D1 and D3. So can you compare, since most of the very good universities are either D1 or D3 within the US NCAA, can you tell us a little bit about the comparison between the two in terms of SAT scores required? Also, what that student experience is like for academic obligations once students are there at the university, and then also the ease of getting into the athletic team in the second year, second semester, if a student isn't initially recruited for that sport?
Yeah, no, that's the question that's most commonly asked about the NCAA Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. The the Division One, mostly NCAA Division One colleges are public universities, so they're very well funded and they have very large, athletics programs. But that doesn't mean that Division One is the best and Division Three is the worst because one is better than three. There are just many different permutations and combinations. You can have a small Division One college and a large Division Three college, which is well funded. The basic difference between the two is the amount of focus that's put into competitive sports and studies. So US college sports are seasonal sports. So mostly all sports are played in the spring semester, except for American football and soccer, which we call football. They are fall sports. So in a season, a Division One season will be very similar to a Division Three season. There'll be equal number of competitions. So typically you'll be playing 2 matches every week. Kisha, you'll be playing two matches every week, right? And so even in soccer, uh, you'll be playing a home match on a Wednesday and a away match on a weekend, whether it's a Division One or a Division Three. The difference happens in the off season, where a Division Three will put more focus on academics. So there's a little less competition during the off season in a Division Three. So that's the basic difference. Uh, but I would also want to share with everybody that there are actually more athletes competing in Division Three than in Division One, because they find that to be a better balance. And there is actually more financial support in terms of scholarship or aid in a Division Three than a Division One, because Division Three cannot give you athletic scholarship, but can give you other forms of money, right? So that's the inherent difference. SAT scores are not mandatory for NCAA anymore. If it's mandatory from the college point of view, then you have to submit your SAT scores. But earlier, before COVID, even if the college was test optional, NCAA made it mandatory to be eligible for college sports. NCAA made it mandatory for you to take the SAT because they wanted to ensure that only students are getting into college sports. But not anymore. Since 2020, I think 2020 or 2021, NCAA has applied a waiver to the SAT so far. And it's just a waiver. It's not been taken off from the portal. It's an automatic waiver that's applied. So SAT is not mandatory. And the last question is also very important. I would not advise anybody to try to get into a team after admission, because there's just too much of uncertainty. If you're not recruited in the second year, you don't know who you're going to be competing with for a spot from outside and from within the team as well, right? And if you're really passionate about sports, and if you really want to play college sports, then you shouldn't leave it to chance, because you don't play for the first year. You're not going to get any coaching. You're not going to be playing with the team. You're not going to be training with the team. You're just going to be on your own. And then it becomes very difficult to remain motivated to stay at that level, right? Because you've got the academic pressure also. So it's not easy getting into the team after admission, because then you're, firstly, as per an NCAA rule, all coaches are supposed to give a tryout in the off season, but all coaches don't have to give a tryout if they don't need anybody. So if the team is full, if a goalkeeper, if a football coach has 3 goalkeepers, doesn't need to give a tryout, right? So you could just be out of luck that you went there and thought that I'll try out next year, but he got a better goalkeeper than you. And then, how long are you going to keep trying? So that is not, it's never easy, and neither is it advisable. I hope I
Yeah,
answered all 3 parts
Absolutely.
of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of that detail. I can't. Yes, I think you did. Am I still audible?
Yeah.
I think Jeanette is great. Okay, fantastic. So you had mentioned the change in SAT scores post-COVID. I want to open up this question to all of the panelists. Are there any other recent emerging trends, especially post-COVID trends, that you've seen either in college sports or the sports industry?
A very big trend, if I may, has just been announced. NCAA has announced a change in the scholarship rules from 2025. There were different rules in terms of every sport is governed by a different rule for scholarship. So they've announced a big change in that. And I don't want to get into that because it'll be another 8 minutes. But you can just go to ncaa.org and you'll be able to see it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Vikram. Jonathan? Yeah.
From an industry perspective, I think things are normalized right now. So we are way past COVID and the aftermath of whatever it left in its wake. But there is definitely a focus on. I think what had happened was because during COVID, teams couldn't have spectators at the stadiums. So they use technology as a way to get the sport to the viewer who was sitting at home and obviously being safe. So there was this emphasis on building tech for a world where you can reach fans who are not necessarily at the stadium. And what that has led to, interestingly, is while fans are back at the stadium, lots of teams are investing in technology that essentially allows people to sit anywhere in the world and experience it like as though they were sitting right there. So an interesting company, for example, that I'm sure a lot of you may have seen on social media, it went actually viral a couple of weeks ago, is a company called COSM. So it essentially has, it is this massive screen that's, I don't know, I can't remember the size of it, probably about 30 feet by 30 feet. And the screen is so beautiful and so clear, and the recording is done in such, the capturing of the video is done in such high definition that you could be sitting in front of the screen and it would feel like you're sitting on the field next to a football player taking a free kick or a football player scoring a goal. So what that has done is it's allowed somebody who is sitting in the US to be, experience the game as though they were sitting at a game in Arsenal, for example. So that kind of technology started, the thought process for that started during COVID, and now it's accelerated where teams are like, now, irrespective of whether COVID happened, irrespective of what happened during COVID, we have found this way to engage our fans sitting thousands of miles across the world. So that's something that has happened in a post-COVID world.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I had no idea about that. So we've talked a little bit about recruitment across well-known sports like soccer / football, athletics, basketball. Are there any emerging sports that don't sort of fit in this traditional, this traditional array of sports? And are some of these emerging sports viable opportunities for athletic recruitment?
Catherine, esports is.
Esports.
Yeah, there are some universities which have esport teams and they offer athletic scholarships. I mean, I wouldn't call it athletic scholarship, esport scholarships, if you want to call it that.
And
Yeah,
are these
esports
across
is
all
an emerging
countries or
sport.
certain countries?
US does.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any
India is
others?
not caught on to that trend. There are, of course, esports companies specifically that do well. India is the fastest growing esports market in the world, primarily because of the proliferation of the mobile device, which is extremely reasonably priced in India, at least the mid-level ones. And of course, the significantly well-priced internet data. Like India has the cheapest internet data across the world. So it's coming up significantly. I know your question is specific to athletic recruitment, but if you're talking about emerging sports, I'll have to obviously probably take a bit of a Chhattiska Akhada with Vikram and say that pickleball is actually significantly picking up. It's definitely not a sport. I don't necessarily see it getting to a stage where it's competitive in terms of the other sports that we currently know. But the unfortunate reality is that one of the reasons why pickleball is becoming famous, and it's very simple, is because it's far less stress on the body for an older population that can actually spend money which in turn has led to clubs, sports clubs deciding to do away with their tennis court and build 2 pickleball courts in order to generate revenue. And this is it's definitely a real challenge and a real problem. I'm a purist like Vikram. If you ask me basketball, for instance, I prefer the 5-on-5 game over the 3-on-3. But the truth of the matter is pickleball continues to grow, and I don't necessarily see it being a college sport. I could be wrong down the line, but it's definitely a sport that is interesting. India, in fact, is going to have a pickleball league in a couple of years. One of my ex-bosses is driving that league, in fact. So, yeah.
Andre Agassi is coming to India in December, January to promote pickleball.
Yeah. And
I hope he gets a
interestingly,
sprain in his ankle.
yeah. I mean, if you think about it, Novak Djokovic, after one of the Grand Slams, he spoke about how tennis is the club level tennis, not tennis as a sport, but club level tennis is at risk from pickleball. And if the world number 1 is saying something, I think we all have to sit up and pay attention.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it is. I mean, 2 pickleball courts come out of 1 tennis court, and there's no entry barrier. And tennis is an elitist sort of a sport. It's expensive, so that's why pickleball is picked up. But we had breakdance in the Olympics. We can have pickleball. Anything can happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. I know that we had some more questions in the chat that we haven't had a chance to get to. So I hope that for those of you who have unanswered questions, you will be able to connect with our panelists who have done a fantastic job of covering what is a really vast topic in terms of the countries, the sports, the careers. There's so much to cover, and we could continue going on and on, but I also want to respect everyone's time on this Friday evening. So I think with these questions, I'm sure you'll be able to connect with these fantastic TOC members who have volunteered as our panelists this evening. I know also, as Bhakti shared in the chat, that the presentation will be shared. There will be a recording up on YouTube afterwards. So as we close out today's session, I just want to extend my thanks to our panelists, Vikram, Dhaval, Kesha, Jonathan. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you to the audience for your questions. I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to get to all of them, but I hope that they will be answered in the coming days by connecting with the panelists. And I hope that you're all leaving with a better understanding of how you can help students chart a path in this emerging sports industry. The playing field is bigger than ever, and I think that with the right guidance and dedication, the future is bright for those who are passionate about sports. Thank you again, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening and weekend.
Thanks, Catherine. And I have to thank you for doing a phenomenal job of moderating the session, putting it together. A huge thank you to you. A huge thank you to Kesha. You added such a critical perspective to this whole conversation. Vikram, Jonathan, Dhaval, always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. Thank you all for doing this. Just because we are from TOC and we are worried about and concerned about all things schools, Kesha, just out of interest, which school did you attend? That's my only question.
I attended Srimati Sulochana Devi Singhania School in Thane.
Oh, great. All right. Fantastic. Well, that was my only question. All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
Bye. Thank you.